So yeah, I have Christopher Bernal and Jess Peterson with me today. They are our Mograph Mastermind mentors. So we're going to answer some questions for you, either about the mastermind or also any questions that you might have about freelancing or building a studio and all of that kind of thing. The internet has been very slow, so I hope that we are live. Just checking. If you are here and you're watching us, please just give us a like or give us a yes in the comments so that we know that we are live and that you can hear us and everything okay. My Facebook is being very slow, which is fun. So yeah, so I'm just going to carry on and hope that we are live until we can see that we are. But since we're currently open for applications for the Mastermind program until Friday, I wanted to just bring Jess and Christopher on this call just to, so everyone can get to know them more and basically ask us any questions that you have about the Mastermind or anything like that. And like I said, anything else that you want to ask us is also cool. Sorry if I'm a bit sniffly on this call because I actually have a cold. So please forgive me. I can see that we're live now, so that's awesome. So if you're watching this, I can see some of you are. Please give us a like and, say hey in the comments too. And, hopefully we can answer some of your questions about the mastermind and help you with other things that you have questions about as well. So if Christopher, if you're ready, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, I'm Christopher Bernal. I'm a local Bay Area motion designer. I've been doing animation and visual effects work around the peninsula for about 13 years now. I switched to motion design in 2014, and part of making that transition was starting a meetup. So I've been running a local motion design group for the past 5 years. I actually joined the Mograph Mastermind back in, was it? Is that June of last year or this year?
I think
It's
it was
been
May,
it
wasn't
was
it?
May.
It was May, yeah.
Okay, it's been a very long year. The but I had a fantastic time. The running a group for 5 years was a really interesting thing to do as I'm getting into a new industry, and I kind of started it on a whim. So I had a lot of ambiguity as to how it tied into my actual career. So part of joining the mastermind was to figure out what to do with it, and yeah, and also that parallel just with my career. So being able to work through that with a group, kind of in a sprint, through the 8 weeks, just doesn't seem like a lot of time. It yeah, just kind of unblocked some kind of like mental hangups I had about like what was the clarity of the vision of the group, and yeah, basically just to say that after that, I have clarity into next June, which is why that date came to mind. Like, there's already an event I have planned for 2020. So the sort of not being able to see past month to month sort of opened up, and now there's clarity. At that point it had been for a year, but yeah, there's events for months, and clarity on my career also came with just getting unstuck on one thing that led to something else being able to focus on and sort of open that up. So this just kind of had a cascading effect.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting as well. Why, it's cool to talk to you about the mastermind stuff, not just because you're now mentoring some of the groups, but it's because you kind of came into the mastermind with quite a different idea of what you wanted to do, compared to everybody else. So I think that is quite interesting because a lot of like questions that we get is like, is it just for freelancers or, what kind of thing will we be looking at? And I think it's like quite self-directed, and I think there's lots of different things that you can look at in the mastermind. So I think it's just good for you to like point out to everybody about like the different kind of things, because I think with your meetups and stuff you're doing something quite unusual as well. So
Yeah, I think that's probably the best part about this is that it really is you curate what it is you talk about. Like it's your struggles, and also the thing that you may have thought was the issue. As you talk about it out loud, you get feedback and responses. You actually realize that there's other components to it or other aspects. So it really is you may have like a specific issue, but that may be symptomatic of something else that you may not have been thinking about.
yeah, I think that's right. Well, before we like dive into more stuff about that, I just want to Jess to introduce herself as well, just before we start getting into all of these things?
All the good stuff.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. And yeah, Christopher has now become my go-to whenever I need a contact or need a name out in the Bay Area. I feel like I've got an expert to call upon. So I feel very grateful for that. So as Hayley mentioned, my name is Jess. My dog Dolly is also, as you saw, popping into screen. That's live feeds for you.
Yeah.
I run a company called Mighty Oak. We are a creative studio that specializes in handmade animation and design. We've been around for about 4 years now, and we've worked with clients, a range of clients, anyone from Netflix and HBO to Condé Nast, Adult Swim, Etsy, Nick Jr., Sesame Street. So it's really been a wide range of clients that have come to us for work over the last few years. And this past year, we were named one of Fast Company's most creative people in business. So that was a cool accolade to receive. And we've also grown as a studio quite a bit in the past 4 years. So my background's actually in music business and production. I spent a lot of years on the road with bands, and then I left that world and ended up at a children's art museum, which is where I met one of my now business partners who ran our stop motion department. And I just fell in love with the medium and decided it was a great way to tell stories. And we decided to start a company kind of right at that right time with Vine emerging, RIP Vine. But it gave us enough of a window to get started. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was a comms major and a creative person at heart, but I wanted to, this became my new creative project, how to start a company and create a space for other creatives to make. And so about 1.5 years ago, I entered an MBA program for creatives who are interested in learning how to be better about the business side of things for their creative businesses. And so that was a really eye-opening experience for me and really helped me hone my skills and operations and finance. And I felt very empowered by that experience. And so when I started chatting with Hayley, I was on a podcast with Hayley last year. Yeah, dates are really, they do blend. You're right, Chris. Sometime last year, we started talking and mentioning, how excited I was to be able to talk to people about the business side, because I do think that understanding obviously we're all out here, we're doing this work because we love it, but also because it's how we make our living. And so being empowered to understand how the business side works, I found made us better creatives. And so I wanted to be able to share that with others. And so Hayley invited me to join Mastermind Program as a mentor. My first session was actually with Christopher, and I loved it. I learned so much, and felt like there were a lot of opportunities for me to share what I have learned over the past few years. And we just had our second session recently, and again, also a blast. And I feel like now I'm friends with everyone in the group. So I'm excited to continue it and keep the conversation going. And I'm getting as much out of this, I'm hoping, as people are getting from me. So.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thanks for that. So, I could see that there's a few people watching this live. Just say hey in the comments, because it's always nice to know that you're there. And if there's any mastermind people who have, previously been in the mastermind or who are going to be in the mastermind in January, then definitely do post in the comments and say hey, so everyone can see who you are and stuff like that. So I just wanted to address some kind of questions that we get a lot about the mastermind before we kind of dive into some more. But if you have any questions about the mastermind or anything else you want to ask us, just please do put them in the comments and we'll try and get some more. So first off, what is a mastermind? I guess should be the first question. So masterminds are peer groups that learn and grow together. You hold each other accountable and help each other, achieve your goals. And in our masterminds, we obviously have mentors, which is everyone that you can see here, Christopher, myself, and Jess, helping you by giving you feedback and advice on your work and your business and your career. So we meet on weekly calls and we set up actionable goals for you every single week that's kind of building towards a larger career goal. So if you're thinking about, going freelance or developing or growing your client base or trying to complete a personal project, these are kind of the classic things that people try to do in the mastermind and that we can help with. So there's lots of other things, as we said, Christopher wanted to, develop his meetups and kind of, see if he could charge for them and all of that kind of stuff. So there's all sorts of people joining with lots of different goals, but they're kind of the main ones. So yeah, so I can see that Alison's saying hey in the comments. She's saying Mastermind alumni here. That's cool. Nice to see you, Alison. So I just wanted to briefly say, like, you know, why I created this mastermind program, because masterminds are a new thing to the industry. Most people don't know what they are. So I think it's important to kind of talk a bit about why I started to do masterminds for motion designers. So I was in a mastermind myself. I've actually been in a few, and I found that it's helped me, you know, so much with my business and career. I wouldn't be actually on this live talking to you. I wouldn't have done the podcast or anything like that if it wasn't for being part of mastermind groups. So I really wanted to bring it to motion designers because I know how helpful it is to support the community and, you know, give you accountability for your goals and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, Jess and Christopher, do you want to add to anything else about those two kind of questions that I've answered there, or anything that I've forgotten? Because I probably have forgotten a lot of things or missed out any important points.
Yeah. But one of the things that kind of stood out to me was that I had heard about masterminds quite a while before I heard about your particular program. And it just had never occurred to me that there would be one specifically for motion designers or people that are in the kind of that creative space. So I don't know, like as soon as I saw that in my inbox, like I had bought the freelance contract bundle. I had heard a few episodes of the Motion Hatch podcast, but the fact that there was such a specific thing tailored to me, there really wasn't, I think I've like communicated to you before, but there really was no hesitation on my part that I wanted to take part in something like this. If anything, just because it was made for this community. So why would I not want to get involved in something like so tailored for, you know, my industry and could, you know, benefit me in some way I wouldn't expect.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really good too because it's kind of, you know, like most masterminds that I've been in, yeah, you're in like a group with other people who have different businesses. And why I think this is also good is because it's all motion designers and animators. We all have the kind of same problems. So I think it's really, you know, great. We can help each other a bit better because it's so like bespoke to the motion design industry and things like that. But yeah, like Jess, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I mean, I'm echoing both of your sentiments. I think I was so drawn to this kind of program for the same reasons. It's very difficult. And I remember even when I was in undergrad and studying music business as an idea, they would take us we'd have a bunch of music classes where I'm hanging out with a bunch of, you know, friends who are in bands, and we're talking about the process of making music and you know, what goes on behind the scenes. And then I'm taking business classes with business majors. And there was just such a long, and they'd taken more classes in accounting. This is my first accounting course. And I just found like there just wasn't the communication, like that basic level of sameness where we could say, oh, and you've seen this happen in the industry, or what do you know about this? And so being able to niche down, much like the MBA program I was in, to talk to people who really understand a service-based industry, the type of design work you're doing, the type of clients you're working with, like what's going on in the industry. People that understand summers are slow, you know, fourth quarters are potentially busier. Like people that just know those different dynamics, I think can share, can not only empathize, but really offer a lot of great suggestions for how you can either grow or, you know, grow your on the business side, or like just excel in your creative mind as well. So I love the niche that this mastermind is. I think it's great.
So basically, I was talking about like what a mastermind is. So masterminds are peer groups that learn and grow together, you hold each other accountable, and you help each other achieve your goals. So in our mastermind, we have mentors, which is me, Christopher, and Jess, who are here with you today. So we give you feedback and advice on your work, your business, and career. So we meet on weekly calls and we set actionable goals for you every single week, which is hopefully building towards a larger career goal that you have coming in. So the kind of ones that we usually have are things like going freelance. You want to go freelance, you want to develop or grow your client base, completing a personal project, or trying to build a small studio. So yeah, so why did I create the mastermind is a question that I get asked a lot, is basically because I was in a mastermind myself and it helped me a lot. And I kind of wouldn't be here talking to you now, doing these lives and the podcast and that kind of thing if I didn't have the support and accountability of my mastermind groups. So this is why I wanted to bring masterminds to motion designers. And lastly, I think like where we left off basically before we had our technical issue was talking about the structure of the mastermind, you know, how long does it last, things like that. So what we do is we have an introduction call and then we have 6 calls after that. So you meet weekly, the calls are an hour and a half. And then every other week you're in the hot seat. There's 4 people in each group. So when you're in the hot seat, you kind of have about half an hour to, you know, explain your problems and what your struggles are and go through them with the group and brainstorm ideas, get feedback from the other people about what you're doing and that kind of thing. And even when you're not in the hot seat, it's just really, really helpful because obviously as motion designers, which we were talking about on the other video, and we all have kind of similar problems, right? So maybe someone else is in the hot seat and they're saying like, oh, well, I was thinking about doing this, blah, blah, blah. And you might be like, oh my God, I never thought of that. Like, I didn't realize that, you know, that was a thing and all this kind of stuff. So that kind of happens all the time, which is really, really cool. And then at the end, we have a break and then we have a session called Your Future Plan, which is where we help you look back on the mastermind, what you've achieved, and make sure that you have a plan and goals going forward. And we have a Slack group where all the alumni of the mastermind are in there, so past and present mastermind members, and it's just a really great place to hang out. And we have lots of different channels, like, you know, we have one looking for hire, like looking for work. We have a book club, we have a tech chat, all of that kind of stuff. So we kind of, it's not just about the calls. We talk to you throughout the week as well. We look at your reels and your websites and help you with all that kind of stuff too. So that's kind of the brief overview of the mastermind, the quick version. If you want to watch the longer version, go and watch the other video. But Jess and Christopher, do you have anything like that you think that I missed that you would like to add to that as well?
Well, I think the nice thing about what I've seen in the mastermind too is that sometimes you can also take these relationships offline. So I know 2 people from the mastermind I was just mentoring were off of Pictoplasma this past week. So they, you know, I think they were looking for like a networking buddy to go with, you know, someone to walk around with, and so that these relationships that we're cultivating online can actually grow and build offline. I see people collaborating on work projects together. And I think it's just like, it's really nice to build that community locally and also like on a grander scale, right? I mean, like didn't you go to a conference in Canada and like saw people from New York? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's bringing everybody together. And I think it's just like a really nice way to do it.
Yeah, it is great. And like, yeah, I met a lot of the mastermind members in Canada and people that have done it previously. I actually went, did a little meetup last night and some people were there who were in the masterminds. That was really nice. I could see that Chris Johnson is saying hey from Canada. He's actually going to be in the January mastermind, so that's exciting. Jamie, as Bradshaw is asking, I've been super busy, so fell out the loop. Is the next mastermind fully booked? That's a great question. So we're actually closing the mastermind applications on Friday, or as soon as we become fully booked, basically, which I imagine might happen. We only have 14 spots left, so that's really exciting. So if you do want to join this mastermind session in January, then I would advise you to apply as soon as possible, because all of the time when the applications come in, I'm looking through all the applications, putting people in the right groups with each other and with the mentors and stuff like that. So yeah, if you are interested, please do apply. You can go to motionhatch.com/mastermind. You can see more information there and obviously get your application in as soon as possible. Basically, I would advise you to do that. So cool. Yeah. So Christopher, did you have anything else you wanted to add? I know we're doing like the Cliff Notes version of what the mastermind is, because we kind of explained it in the other video too.
No, I think that the one of the things that always catches me, and something that I used to do through like direct messages or through emails or just occasional follow-ups, the accountability is something that really accelerates the process of working through things. Because when we talk about a weekly goal or assignment or something to kind of accomplish, when you know that people are expecting to follow up with you on it the next week, or that you've sort of publicly announced something that you plan to do, suddenly there's this urgency that gets added to and sort of weight to something that, I mean, yeah, you may have thought, oh, I'm going to get my reel done. But if you announce to the group that you're going to get your reel done, and every week we're following up like, hey, how's the progress on the reel? There's a good chance you're going to get done with that reel because you're going to feel that, there's an expectation that's kind of externalized. And then as that, you realize that that was something that you decided was something you wanted to accomplish. It's nice to have multiple things that are sort of helping you get across that finish line, as opposed to there's all these things I want to do, or maybe there's these videos I need to watch. If you know that there's a purpose behind it, other people are kind of rallying and sort of like giving you encouragement, or even if you get stuck, to know that that's a short-lived hurdle that you have to work through. I think that's something that's really kind of crucial to this, and actually why like the mastermind was sort of like the highest like level of like, okay, I really need accountability to get this thing done. Because if you chat with a buddy or you sort of just post it on Twitter or Instagram or something, it doesn't have the same weight as joining something as specific as this to work through, even if it's kind of an ambiguous one, to have like 2 months to work through something. I just think that's, it's unique.
Yeah, and I think like you're saying, like the accountability part of the mastermind is actually the biggest thing, and it's just even like having that kind of more 360 view of your work and getting other people who aren't involved, with your day-to-day lives, like your colleagues or your friends and stuff, to like comment on your work and give you like a kind of broader perspective of where you are in the industry and stuff like that. I found that this mastermind session that we just did, it seemed like a lot of people wanted that. They were sort of saying like, well, I don't really understand where I fit in the industry and that kind of thing. And I think it was really nice because you have, you obviously have us like the mentors, but then you have the other 3 people in your group too. And also everyone else in the session. But you kind of, I think that everyone seems like they develop a really nice, tight-knit kind of relationship with the people in their immediate group. And it's just been really awesome for me to see the groups like come together. And obviously I work quite hard to put everybody in the right groups with each other. And then it seems like when we start doing the calls, I'm like, these are the perfect people to be in a group together. And I just like, it's been like so awesome to see that. I don't know whether you guys felt the same way really with the groups that you just took through in September.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to know, just in general, from the multiple groups that we've worked with, that sometimes, I think you actually mentioned it, maybe I was on the previous call, you don't even have to have the answer to what your question is going to be, if that makes sense. I think a lot of times people feel like, well, I'm nervous about jumping in on something, like committing to a project when I don't even know what my ask is yet. That's been a struggle for me sometimes. You're like, well, there's so many things I want to do, or I want to go in this direction or that direction, and I don't know which one to do. So I should wait until I know. But I think that's kind of the beauty of a program like this too, is that it helps unlock, just like any creative brainstorm, if we're sitting in our room by ourselves trying to come up with the creative for a 2-minute video, and you're stuck, you don't always get the answer by just sitting there longer. And usually, or at least for me, I find I have to go and talk to people and run a brainstorm session and get other perspectives. And then new ideas pop up that I never would have thought of, that actually not only lead me to a potentially good decision, but just like inspire me to think creatively again, which is exciting and nice, and kind of the reason why we do this all the time. And so I think not only is it nice to see when people do overlap and have those similar interests, but just in general, watching people who come in and have said, to be honest, I don't really know where to start. Like, I'm going in this direction, but I'm feeling lost. I think it's actually kind of a beautiful time to meet and talk with other peers in your group, to kind of open up, different directions and solutions. So that's something else I've noticed in the past few groups, is that sometimes the people that seem to get the most out of it are actually people who came in going like, I don't know where I'm at, and I feel like I have the longest way to go, and they really go far.
Yeah, I think so too. And what I really think is good is because we do the perfect day exercise and we do all the kind of upfront stuff at the beginning to prepare you for the calls. So it's like, even if you don't know, like you're saying, like what you might sort of get out of it or where you're going, and you think like, what am I supposed to be doing next in my career and all those sorts of things. Like, I just think it's really, really good for that, and just providing people with some clarity and stuff around. So yeah, like if anyone has any more questions about the mastermind, we can talk about it a bit more. Just post them in the comments. If you are a mastermind alumni, say hey in the comments. You know, if you're thinking about joining, say hey. If you're joining in January and you've already got your place, then please do post in the comments, because it's great to see who's watching here. So we can go, there's a few questions in the comments about stuff as well, so we can answer those. And then if anyone else has more questions about freelancing, building a studio, the mastermind program, anything like that, just post them in the comments and we'll get to them. So Ilko has a question for you, Jess. He says, how do you find the right client, since animation motion design is such a versatile medium and in that sense applicable on many, if not all, customer segments?
Yeah, right. How do you decide even where to start?
Yeah,
that is a great question. Well, I think we started with the old-fashioned dream board, so I don't know if that's something you're already doing, but just writing out a list of the dream clients that we're interested in speaking to, and not necessarily just Adult Swim alone, although yes, they were on our list, but also just thinking about what that means. Who are they in the broader scheme, you know, types of networks we want to work with. Like the broader types of stories we want to tell is also important, because a lot of times for us, and this might ring true for a lot of people who are working more on the commercial side of things, we're working through agencies. And so if you're working with like Droga 5, let's say, you don't know where they're going to place you, what kind of projects you might be coming your way. But we respect their work and like the kind of projects they do. So we're going to try to get in front of them and let them know what our work is. And I find sometimes, I say this a lot in the mastermind groups, it's half of the process of finding the clients you want to work with is you going out there and getting them. And the other half is understanding who you are enough and making yourself look, you know, attractive enough or strong enough in your style on all of your marketing platforms that people find you. And so that's the other thing. There's been people who've reached out to us that I never would have thought of, and we've had amazing relationships, and we've been able to do beautiful work because they liked what we were about, and our values aligned because they could understand pretty quickly who we were about. So it's both ways, I think, because the dream list can only go so far. You can only know so many companies and like different areas to find, to look. And I think the other part is, how do you make sure people know who you are and come to you? So that's definitely something we talk about in the mastermind programs a lot. Is like, how do we really put that spin on our own stories and get that out there so people find us? It's also less work for you. I mean, if you're only out there hitting the pavement or sending emails all the time, it's I don't know, like a little demoralizing to me. I need someone to come to me too and be like, I like what you're about. That gives me a little bit more encouragement to go and talk to someone else later. So it's a little bit of a back and forth. Long-winded answer, but I don't know if that helped.
Yeah, it's like a bit like you want to have sort of that like inbound stuff coming as well as like you always going out all the time. I think that's definitely true. Peter was asking, when's the next podcast episode coming out? Motion Hatch is my favorite. Thanks. That's really nice. It's coming out next Tuesday. It's every other Tuesday, and it's with Nick Campbell from Grayscale Gorilla. So I am excited about that one. It was really nice to chat to him. So yeah, Chris Johnson is asking. Chris Johnson is actually going to be part of the January Mastermind too, so that's pretty cool. He said the importance of updating and utilizing LinkedIn. He said Q for Jess, but I'm going to jump in because I like talking about LinkedIn, and then you can answer as well if you want.
No, I love to hear what you have to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that LinkedIn is a highly unutilized platform, and I think we should be using it, more, because we did a podcast episode with Maya Perkins, and she uses LinkedIn a lot, and she gets a lot of like direct clients and things like that through it. But I also think that you can use it for like doing a lot of research, like trying to find out like who is the producer and stuff at a certain animation studio that I like and stuff like that. It's really, really good for that kind of thing. And it's basically like your online CV. So I think that you should definitely be updating it and keeping it up to date and that kind of thing. So yeah, like if Christopher and Jess, do you have any other comments to add to that? That's kind of like my overview. I mean, obviously in the mastermind and stuff, we talk about LinkedIn quite a lot, and just it comes up, and like I like looking at people's LinkedIn as well as their websites and making sure that all looks nice and kind of makes sense and stuff like that.
Yeah, is it the actually LinkedIn is something I use way more than any other platform. It's sort of the way that I keep my Rolodex updated. It kind of gives me a sense of who's working where. For myself, even though I don't list all the places that I'm working at, it also lets people know that I'm still keeping busy, and also lets me see how my network is changing over time. Because there's a lot of nuance of when so many people, especially in the space that I'm in with a lot of freelance motion work, as we hop between agencies, companies, your network is constantly changing, and it's not effective to try to email and keep track of every single person in your network personally. So to be able to have LinkedIn, to be able to sort of curate it and cultivate it so that you're adding people that actually utilize the program, they'll respond to a message, or if you see that somebody works at a place that you want to work, do they actually know these people, or are they just adding contacts just to add contacts? Something that I personally use LinkedIn pretty heavily for is that when I go to networking events, rather than handing out a business card, I'll add people on LinkedIn, send messages to them through that platform. And if I see that there's a real connection, I'll leave that contact alone. But if in a few months they haven't responded to my messages, they'll just slowly get peeled off the list, sort of like as an annual purge with the LinkedIn. And that's kind of helped me keep my network in a more manageable place. I'm trying to keep it at about 500, 600 people that I know are comfortable referring and I want to work with again. It's not everybody gets in. These are people I want to work with, want to keep in contact with, and are actually utilizing the program.
Yeah, that's cool. Jess, do you want to have anything to say on LinkedIn as well?
Use it.
That's it. We're all saying use it.
Yeah, it's a good tool. Yeah, you should use it.
Yeah, I think Chris has some questions, follow-up questions. Do you vet people trying to contact you through LinkedIn? You sort of answered that, Christopher. I mean, I would say that I do it in a bit of a different way to you, and I don't think that I think that both are good. I don't think it's kind of how you want to use it, but because I'm sort of using it on like a bit of an inbound marketing kind of way as well. I think posting stuff about the podcast and things like that, and you can do that with your reel and stuff as well. I do add people that I don't know too, but I do keep it like within the industry. So I'm like, oh, if it's another motion designer, something like that, like I kind of use it in that respect. So I think he had another question about contacting via LinkedIn too. I'm just trying to find it. Oh yeah, would you reach out to unknown people through LinkedIn or try and track down their email? So I mean, my suggestion on this is I'm not really a massive fan of LinkedIn Messenger stuff. Like if I'm going to a conference,
very low responding rate on it.
Yeah, but if I'm going to a conference, what I would do is maybe I'd find people on LinkedIn and say like, hey, we're going to be at the same conference. Do you want to like hang out? Like I would use it in that way, but I wouldn't try and get clients, if that makes sense, that way. What I would do is like find out who the producer or whoever it is at like an animation studio, if that's the way you want to work, or the person who's going to give you the work basically, and then use like an email finder service to find their email and then email them directly. I think that's much better than trying to message them via LinkedIn. I mean, as someone who hires animators, Jess, what do you think about that as well?
I was going to say that it depends. I think for us, yeah, people have definitely reached out via LinkedIn and email, and both work. We look at the quality of someone's work, and sometimes honestly, I hate to say it, sometimes it's like, have you been really inundated in emails today? Because then maybe if you're like looking at LinkedIn and that pops up, it's like, oh, it's fresh to me because I've got 80 emails sitting there that need a response. Sometimes it can depend, and so I kind of look at each situation differently. One, I also like to look and see how often someone's been updating their LinkedIn, because if they haven't updated anything in 3 years, well then yeah, LinkedIn messaging is probably not a great solve for you. They don't seem like they're probably looking very much. But I have certainly used LinkedIn messaging. If I have sent someone an email at some point, or we've been chatting and I haven't heard from them in a little while, and I need a new reason to kind of poke them and say hello, and maybe I don't have any news that I'm able to share. First I'll look to see, is there an article or something I can say, I see, I just saw you were here or there, something relevant to the conversation. But if I have nothing really to share and I still want to be able to find a way to say hello, sometimes if I'm not friends with them on LinkedIn yet, I will friend them, and all of a sudden it's a new little poke, hello, and it reminds people, yes, I owe Jess an email. Or it's like a surprising pop-up in their inbox, and it's worth their attention for a quick message. So I've actually found it to be somewhat helpful, but it kind of depends on the person. And I think ultimately my approach to business development in general is not a mass approach to anyone. I kind of look at each person and how I think they respond best. Sometimes I'm DMing people on Instagram. Sometimes this is an email. It kind of goes in a bunch of different ways, and I kind of feel out the different people I want to talk to and really try to target them in a way that seems like it's going to be best. So LinkedIn might be good for some people in that regard. So I wouldn't write it off entirely. That's my argument to the conversation. But again, that's something that the mastermind, I think, does well, is that you'll hear from a lot of people with different opinions. You'll hear what's working for them and what doesn't. Because I don't know that there's one right way to do any of this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the kind of mastermind program format, is it's not like here's a freelancing course kind of thing, go through this and then you'll know everything, because I think that, like we're saying, that just doesn't really work. It's like you can't, it's because there's no like one size fits all sort of thing. It's about like trying different things, experimenting, getting feedback from other people, in this case like people in the mastermind group, and getting feedback on your work and making sure that's good and your website and it's clear and stuff like that. Like obviously there are like key things, but in terms of like contacting people, clients and stuff like that, I think like what you're saying is sort of like what works for that individual might not work for somebody else. So I think that's really key. And then also, like Jamie was saying, is there anything that surprised me since running the mastermind? Have I learned anything that I wasn't expecting? I think that I've learned a lot about, how different people like to work, like that come into the mastermind, like as well. So that kind of plays into what we were talking about, like as in like different people need different things to progress in their career. It's not, like we're saying, it's not like one size fits all. It's everybody has a different issue and everyone needs to be kind of helped in different ways. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned. But it's really good and it's really exciting because it gives me a lot of ideas for like other stuff that I can do with Motion Hatch to help everyone too. So that's really awesome. So there's a question for Christopher. For organizing events, what's the general approach for marketing it? Low profile through Facebook? Low profile through a low profile through a Facebook event, or more sending out newsletters via MailChimp, etc.?
Yeah, so this is a really great one because meetup.com has been going through some stuff, partly because they're connected to WeWork. So this is a topic I'm actually I'm setting up a January event to talk with other event organizers on how do we move forward and diversify our communication tools. I would say that direct and personal is one of my favorite ways. Like I'll make an event, but I still will send out personal invitations through whatever platform is handy. If it's on Facebook Messenger or LinkedIn messages or just a direct email. I do try to, if I set up an event, it's probably because I had specific people in mind. So I'll send sort of personal invitations to the event to them first, and they can feel free to share it with whoever they feel like. If they can't make it, maybe they'll know somebody else, or they can share it with the studio that they're at. The next one is like doing email is preferred, but you have to build that email list. You can't just aggregate a bunch of emails and then try to send out a mass invitation. So at some point you're gonna have to build that newsletter, but that's also something that I've been moving towards, because some platforms like actually specifically meetup.com, people ignore organizer notifications. Facebook, if you're already in a community, there's a good chance that if you post an event, people will see it and it's not sort of spam filtered out of the way. But making sure you have that clear. Email seems to be the consensus, at least with the small like polls that I've taken with the motion design community in San Francisco. Email was a simple way for them to sort of monthly get a heads up on stuff that they might be interested in attending. The other one is that social. So just to make sure that we're not having the same people attending the events, we try to post it across multiple social platforms, not necessarily from my group's social handles, but the members themselves. I'll just make a little flyer and I'll pass it around. And if people want to share it, that's great, because it's potentially going to get out to people that may not have seen it otherwise. But I think if you just sort of check those boxes and then just see the event specifically, you'll see that like after a certain amount of effort, the events will just sort of naturally find their way through the community. Actually, reposting an event on a Slack group that you're a part of is a really great way to get it on people's attention, especially when there's a region-specific channel. Like there's a group called MDA, the Motion Design Artist Slack. Then I'll post things in US West, or there's another channel for bigger general events. But it's more low profile, the better, not spamming people with information. It's like the more specific, the more tailored and targeted, definitely it helps with turnout, because ultimately you're trying to get your peers, in my case, to attend. So I don't want them to feel like this is coming from somebody they don't know.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's true of like trying to find clients and stuff as well, is like, start with the local stuff and don't like just blast out to everybody like you're saying. So I think that's really helpful. If you're just joining us, if you're watching us live, please do, hit like and let us know you're here in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, hello. If you have any questions, I'll happily answer them afterwards in the comments as well. If you're watching the replay of this, but if you're here live, please do put some questions for us below. Anything on like the mastermind program or on freelancing or starting a studio or anything like that. Just let us know. So just looking at some of the comments that we have already. Ilko says, alumni here, had a blast and definitely worth the investment. Thanks so much. So I don't think we've got any more comments. If you put a comment in there and I haven't seen it, just let me know. Ilko said he's got another one. What are the pros cons to Jess? What are the pros and cons of in a studio based on freelancers or in-house team? Freelancers scale per project, in-house is steady workflow. I said, do you mean, are you talking about remote versus freelancers? Like remote freelancers versus in-house, having an in-house team? I think that's what he's talking about. I think.
What are the pros and cons to having having a staff versus freelancers?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Well, right, and there are pros and cons and benefits to all sides, and that's why we do both. Obviously, it is really nice to be able to have an in-house team that understands your process and your workflow, that you can rely on, that kind of come in, they know what to do, they know where everything lives, they know your organizational systems, and already have skills that you can trust. On the other side of that, having freelancers come in with new ideas, new skills, more creativity also really, I think, benefits certainly our team. And I know whenever we do our quarterly reviews on how projects went, people always love having the experts that come in, whether they're the edible cookie designers who made our little ghosts for a Halloween commercial we did, or someone or a DP and a lighting expert, or, whatever the case may be. People do enjoy having those experts that come in, because full-time team members are often generalists, or at least for us, so that they can tackle a lot of different projects as they come in, because we tackle so many different types of projects. And so for us, we really do need to have a nice, healthy balance of both. Because timelines can change at any point, and so it's really nice to have a storyboard artist who can, work with us today. And if the client says actually pause and wait till Friday, we're not rejiggering, their schedules and hours and, enforcing any, any frustration. That's part of being on a staff. And again, at the same time, having freelancers come in and show us new capabilities is also really exciting and helps projects get more creative. I'd say on the opposite side, that's coming from an employer. For the employee side, whether or not to be in-house or not, again, it kind of depends on your personality and I think your interests and whether or not you like to be able to pick up on a lot of interesting jobs that make you happy, or if you're happy enough to say, I'm going to work on whatever my manager tells me I'm working on today. And, fortunately for us, I think the nature of the work has brought in a lot of really exciting projects that I hope my team likes to do most of the time. They probably don't like every project. I don't know who would, but we like most of them. And so again, there's stability, there's insurance, there's all those nice perks of full time, which is great. It just doesn't allow you a lot of flexibility as much as you would have in the freelance world. And so that's really up to you and your personality and what you feel is going to serve you best.
Yeah, I think that's definitely right. It's like, I like working remotely, but I was talking to someone last night and they were saying like, oh, I just don't like working remotely. I just want to be with the team in-house. And I was like, oh, most people don't think that, but it is good to know that, there are people who like to do both. So if you're just joining us, we're here with Christopher Bernal and Jess Peterson, who are mentors for our mastermind program. If you have any questions for us, please do just post them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you either about the mastermind or building a studio or going freelance or anything like that. And if you're watching the replay, likewise, just post your questions in the comments and we'll try and answer them. So, another question from Chris. I'm going through some downtime. From your experience, what is the best way to utilize this time? Learning new software or tools, or building creative content for your reel and posting on social media? So I'll let everybody answer this, but I'll go first. So I think like in downtime, it's kind of like what your goal is, right? Like, so, I mean, I would say it's always nice to work on personal stuff, but like, if you're talking about like learning new software or tools or making creative content, like can you learn new tools or new skills while making some new content to post on social media? That would be my kind of question, I guess. Like if that's what you want to do, or are you trying to up your skills in a certain area so you can do more jobs for clients like that? Like it really depends on what the goal is. I mean, we can probably elaborate if you want to post in the comments exactly what you're trying to sort of achieve in the next year or something. I know that you're in the mastermind in January, so obviously we can go more in depth then. But if you want to elaborate a bit. But what do you think, Christopher and Jess, about that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's funny. This question is very specific to kind of like what I did. I spent about a year down in Silicon Valley, and I was working with the team, all year, and it was a really great experience. Being able to show up every day, kind of have an expectation of what's happening week to week. But the unfortunate thing is that my networking sort of tapered off. I wasn't able to have as much FaceTime with people that I used to when I was freelancing more, kind of haphazardly through the year, which is what I tend to do. So the first thing I did when I had a stretch of downtime was I basically just booked, day trips to different parts of the Bay Area and had lunch and breakfast and dinner, checked out a couple studios. It sort of gave me an opportunity to sort of reconnect with people in a way that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to if I had my day sort of filled with client work. There was no pressure. I could take my time, hit some traffic, not a problem, turn on a podcast. Just the ability to flexibly catch up with people. And through catching up with people, I started to express things that I was interested in doing next. And that led to introductions to some passion type projects, other small freelance gigs that wouldn't have been on my radar if I hadn't just hit pause and sort of just reconnected with folks. And by doing projects with other people, it sort of breaks the isolation of watching tutorials, sitting in front of my computer, working on projects. If I'm able to meet up with somebody at a coffee shop, do a creative brief, Go home, work on it for a couple of days, ping them the results. We can have a video chat about the progress. Those were all things that they're kind of like evolutions of things I used to do. I used to just look like, hey, I'm available. I want to work on a music video. Does anybody know somebody? Now I don't even need to solicit interesting jobs. I'll just focus on catching up with people, talk about what are skills and tools that might be relevant coming up. And then by that, it all sort of like, it starts to get clarity of which thing I should be kind of focusing on. Is it tools, or is it just trying to find those people that are doing interesting work that I want to do more of? It just helps like get clarity. So if I do sit in front of my computer, it's very purposeful, not just I'm learning a new tool for, the sake of learning a new tool.
Yeah, I think that's like kind of what I think as well. And Chris followed up on the comments, and he said, I suppose Achieve attracts different scope of clients, typically do character work, but trying to do more design-based work. I could easily push myself to figure out that in a new tool. Good point, Hayley. Yeah, so I think it's like doing a bit of both. I like that idea, and just being purposeful, like you were saying, Christopher, as well. Yeah, so we've got a few more comments. I know we're not going to stay on too much longer, everyone. So if you do have a burning question, put it in the comments now. And then if we don't get to them, we'll answer them later. Please do give us a like as well. And let us know you're here. If you just want to say hey, that would be awesome. So another question for Christopher, if you don't mind. As far as events goes, doesn't it give you the itch to go full by setting up location, guest speakers, etc.? And if so, how do you recall yourself back to keep it more in a living? How do you recall yourself back to keeping it more in a living room approach? Have a drink, talk, and fun overall. I think you do events with speakers, right?
Oh, I do massive events too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, I do it kind of across the board. For me, it was kind of a progression. Meeting up with one person or just a few people to have coffee or a beer was sort of where things began. Opening that up, I started to have like larger events with 6 to 12 people. But then after you start to have about 12 to 16 people, you need to start giving it a format, or people are just milling about. So after we had about 25 to 50 people, a speaker sort of anchors the evening and starts to give structure to the event, gives it a theme. Even smaller events, if it's going to be more than you're comfortable wrangling, establishing the topic before you do the event is really helpful, just so that people come in with the expectation we're going to talk about whatever. And I think that like even when you scale up to a much bigger event with multiple speakers in a bigger venue, you still want to give people an opportunity to network, be engaged with a particular topic, and then to be able to decompress and talk about what was just discussed, meet the speaker, and chat with some other people about that topic, and do any last minute networking. So always trying to not overschedule the evening or the afternoon or the breakfast, whatever the thing might be. But I think it's about the variety, and also who shows up dictates what kind of events are going to be successful. Because not everybody is going to want to be in a big, busy bar trying to talk about work. So I've heard about like brunch meetups. I had a really fun breakfast, which is like one other person because I scheduled it too early. But we got really deep into a topic. So I think any event has the potential to be awesome. It really just depends on who's showing up, how involved do you want to be in the actual managing of the event, and how much do you want to personally experience it. There's a really great book I read recently, which is about building community with people, not for them. So I'd also say a big piece of encouragement, regardless of the scale of the event, is to make sure that you have some people in mind who you can discuss through like the nuances of it. Because it eliminates a lot of variables if you sort of have a clarity of what you want to do, but that's kind of you, and you're doing the event kind of for you with the intention of it being for other people. And the earlier you start to bring people into that process, just the more of these questions just kind of naturally answer themselves.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think that's really good. So I just want to just say, like, if you have any more questions, because I think we're going to start wrapping up soon, put them in the comments and we'll try and answer them. But if you're watching the replay, like, feel free to ask questions in the comments as well, and we'll get to them. Ivan has a question. I love doing video and animation, but right now my Instagram is just animation. I want to keep my feed clean of just that. So my real question is, should I create a new Instagram account with video work or start mixing in the different kind of work? I've seen people do both. I think my opinion, I mean, maybe Jess and Christopher have different opinions, but I don't know, like I feel like it depends how different it is. Like if you think it's very different, maybe you could just create two, because it's really easy to switch in Instagram now. Like, I have Motion Hatch Instagram, I have my Instagram, I have my cat's Instagram. Like, and I like just can easily switch on my phone between them. So I don't think it's like a big deal. I guess it's just if you feel like the same clients would like to hire you for both, or you feel like they're completely different clients. I think that would be the question. Jess, do you have anything to add to that?
It's again, yeah, I guess it does depend. I don't think there's anything wrong with starting another version or another Instagram, and you can always just put that in the bio. Animation work here, live action work here. I think we're seeing more and more of that on Instagram right now. I guess, yeah, because outside of who you want to hire, you're also looking to kind of what Christopher was saying, the community that you're speaking to and what they're looking for. And we've noticed sometimes too, even though we do work outside of stop motion, when we're posting on Instagram, if we post something that's live action with a little bit of stop motion or like some 2D over it, it doesn't necessarily get as much engagement as some of our 3D puppet work. And I think it's just based on who our community is and what they're expecting to see from our feed. So as you say this, I'm like, oh, maybe we should consider that. But it's definitely something that you could do if you think you're going to keep both up actively. I guess that's the only thing, is if you don't have a lot of live action or video work, I don't know that you want to start up. I might wait until you have something more robust to make sure it feels like a full account. And not just like, the stragglers for things that so it doesn't feel like lesser than, because that's not the point, right? You want to show the work is equal, just different types of mediums. And so until you get there, I might keep it all going and just see what's resonating with your audience and community, and then maybe take it elsewhere if you feel like there'd be a want for it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's about like trying to think about what who you're targeting, what your community wants, what the audience wants, that kind of thing. So I think we're gonna start wrapping this up soon, because I realized it'd been on for like 46 minutes and then the other video, so we had a technical problem earlier. So if you're watching this and you think we like rushed through a bit at the beginning, it's because we said it all before. So please do go and watch the other video as well. If you're watching the replay, I'll link below this video to the other video, wherever that is. And so I think there's like one more question. We'll answer Kalika's one more question, and then we'll like wrap up, I think. And then if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to put them in the comments below. I do apologize that I have been slightly blowing my nose. I am a bit sick, but the show must go on and all that. So so one more question we have from Kalika is, I have a super wide range of work since I work collaborative on projects with artists with lots of different styles and do character, Mograph, compositing and edit. Would you recommend cutting it all together in one reel where it mixes everything together, or different reels with different kind of work, or a thumbnail approach showing each pick separately? So Christopher, do you want to have a go at this one?
Oh yeah. My whole career has been defined by sort of generalist, mixed media sort of approach. Curation is a huge part of, just becoming a more successful creative, especially right now, is that there is so much diversity in ways motion and animation and visual effects and interactive and immersive. Like there's so many different types of media right now that if you don't curate down what it is you specifically want people to hire you for, you won't necessarily come to mind for any particular project. So my approach, especially when I moved from visual effects to motion design, is that I tried to put more live action and animation pieces that had something to do with venues and sort of advertising. I just kind of took all the other documentary sort of pieces that didn't really have a specific. It wasn't obvious what it was. I tried to remove that from my reel. So a huge part is just curating it down. Like, what are the best pieces? What are the pieces that you want to talk about? And in your particular case, if you have so many different things, and you have a lot of really good work for each of those things, there's absolutely nothing wrong with creating a reel for each of those, just not putting all those reels in the same place. So sort of the way that my website works is that I kind of advertise myself as an animation, motion designer. But I have specific reels for different types of work that I do that I send to people when they actually have an interest or when I'm reaching out to certain companies. So if it's going to be more motion based, I have like an animation reel. If it's going to be more UX, I have a bunch of promotional material and UX sort of motion pieces that have all been cut together. If it's editorial, I even have a couple pieces that I specifically will showcase if it's that type of work. So I think that would be my advice, is that if you have lots of good work, make multiple reels, but don't put them all in one place. Like, pick one for your actual website and just be really particular about how you introduce yourself. Don't say, I do all these things. Kind of like lead with the thing you like to do most. And then through conversation, as you get to know the person you're talking to, you can start to, oh, I also do this, or, oh, I'm familiar with that. Look at this project I've done. Like,
I'm going to add to what Christopher's saying, because I agree. You want to be able, I think the idea of niching is really helpful because, as he mentioned, you want people to think of you as an expert for something. But to grow that a little bit further, another thing you could think, if you do really want to show all of your work collectively, the other thing to consider is what's called a USP, and your unique selling point. So if it's not going to be a particular medium, the other thing could be who it's for. So, for example, if you really only want to work with nonprofits, you could be a one-stop shop for nonprofits, and that's your focus. That's the thing they'll know you for. So you could do live action, motion design, stop motion animation, all sorts of things, and make it one collective reel that's geared towards understanding a certain type of agency or service or product or community, if that makes sense. So something else to think about. If you're not going to be specializing in a certain type of medium, another way you can specialize is in the types of clients or the type of work that you offer. Like, it's thinking about what your brand is and who are the people you're trying to target might also help you think through what makes it to the reel and what doesn't. Is it actually helping people to understand the capability that you need them to know, or is it going to be extra content? Because that's what you want. You want to cut away all the fat and just give them the best of the best. But I'd say maybe think about it as a holistic narrative as to what you're trying to share as you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and I think it's like, I feel like we've had this a lot in the mastermind as well. It's like either you're niching down in like style or, certain type of work, or you're niching down in like industry, which is basically what we're like talking about.
Yep.
There's kind of like different ways to do it. And I like personally would like to see more people niching down in industry, different industries and stuff like that, because I think as like motion designers, it's quite just untapped area right now of like saying like, hey, I'm the motion designer for like, kind of online entrepreneurs who teach this kind of thing. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like, people don't really think about that sort of thing. But I was at a conference this weekend that was like a business and entrepreneurial conference, and I met someone spoke on stage, and she had a design agency, and because she specializes in helping entrepreneurs with their businesses and like really, really high level ones, so they've got like a lot of money to spend on stuff too. And then she was like on stage basically talking to her perfect clients. Like, you just can't get better than that kind of thing, like all the people in that room wanted to work with her because they were like, oh, you are the person who helps entrepreneurs with their websites and with design stuff and things like that, so you're my perfect designer, rather than just like a random designer who doesn't know anything about that kind of industry and what people do with online businesses and stuff like that. So I thought that was really awesome.
For sure.
Cool. So I think we'll wrap it up there. But thank you so much, everyone, for watching live. And if you're watching replay, thank you as well. If you like these live Q&A kind of things, let me know in the comments and I'll try and do more of them. I've been doing a lot of lives recently and it's always really fun to hang out in the community. So I really appreciate you all being there, and obviously we appreciate your time as well. So we've covered like an awful lot today, and I wish we could do this like much longer, but obviously aware of like everybody's time and stuff like that. So a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, you know, we talk to people in the mastermind about, and you know, so if you're looking for the support and accountability for your career, and you know, you're trying to go freelance or trying to complete a personal project or grow your client base or start a studio, like do check it out at motionhatch.com/mastermind. We'd love to see you in the mastermind groups in January. And I've put the link in the description as well. And just note that applications do close on Friday or whenever we fill the spots up. We only have 14 left as of when we're doing this live video. So if you want to apply, just do it as soon as possible, basically, would be my recommendation. So yeah,